I like it. Do you remember that?
I forgot, no.
I was wearing this big brown, and she said, "It's sitting on the foot of my bed, make it leave." From that point on, when I went in Mother's room, I had to wear a blanket or coat, because if I wore that big brown sweater, she thought there was a squirrel in the room. Until the pressure on her brain eased up, and she began to see things differently, and she got her volume back down.
She recovered from that.
She did. Complete recovery on her left side, got all of her movement back. It wasn't real strong, but it all came back. So, but that's why I was going to say it depends on what the diagnosis is. If they're having hallucinations, it could be that there's a recurrence of something going on. It could be that they're in another stage, like they're stepping up into their dementia. It could be that there's been a brain trauma, like with my mom, from something. There's any number of things. Always, when you're doing your intake, check to see what the person's diagnosis is, so that you understand what's going on with them. Okay, when dealing with these difficult behaviors, it is critical that caregivers, family members, and friends learn what the triggers may be. So you're going to want to ask the caregiver if there's any behaviors, like they may not be violent, but they may cry. And you want to know what's going to trigger that, because maybe that's their frustration level. That's the way that they release their frustration, is to cry.
Okay.
Or maybe I used to know a lady that she would do this with the palm of her hand on her leg, because she wasn't able to verbally tell you, and that was her thing. That was her thing that she did, and the daughter had to tell me what was triggering that happening, and it was that I was asking the questions too fast, and she couldn't either write out. She'd had a bilateral stroke, and she couldn't write quick enough because she was having to learn to use, I want to say she was left-handed, and she was having to learn to use the right. And she would bang her hand like this to get, and I was like, what in the world is going on? So you're going to want to find out from the caregiver what the triggers are. If you ask, is it that you're asking the questions too fast? Or are you treating them like they don't understand you when they do? And it's just that it takes them longer to process. I have a friend that, and it's not Sharon, because this person goes 90-0 all the time. I mean, I don't know how she keeps from just flat out burning out. And she'll ask me something, and about the time that I finally get where I can actually answer her because I've thought about what she said, she's on to something else. And I'm like, well, I'm guessing she didn't really want an answer. And then she'll go, oh, sorry, I didn't give you a chance to answer that, did I? No. And now by this time, because I'm like, I was thinking about something else, now you want me to think about that question again. Now I have to reformulate my answer.
Well, see, in this fight, at the nursing home, we're assigned people that we're supposed to connect with and just visit them, a couple times a week, whatever, just get to know them, the residents, so that we might see something somebody else might not see, and make sure they're okay and listen to them or whatever. Well, okay, so here I'm the newbie, and I was assigned this new lady that had come in, and I went in to talk to her, and I sat down, and she was watching TV, and she turned and looked at me, and I said, hi, I'm Sharon, and she just stared at me, and I'm like, okay, and I thought I was raising my voice, you know, because I'm here, she's an older person, you know. And I said, I just wanted to see if you're okay. Do you need anything? She just stared at me. She looked back at the TV. And so then I thought, okay, maybe I better go talk to the director of nurses and find out a little bit about her. Because maybe she doesn't communicate. Well, she's deaf as whatever, found out. And I was like, oh.
I bet she thought, I don't know what she said, but she's kind of cute.
And, you know, and I just felt like such an idiot. And so the next time I went to see her, and her daughter was there, and she was talking right in her ear. And so I was like, oh, this is what I need to do. I felt like, I don't know what. So that was just, I think God was just telling me, you know, you should find out a little bit before you went in there. So
that's another thing that you're going to want to do is where you never assume. Is just because someone's old doesn't mean that they're hard of hearing.
I know. Well, some of them don't have any trouble at all.
Right. They'll hear you at 40 paces
Mhm.
and be like, I can hear you in there. I know you're talking about me. Yeah, Mother was that way. You know.
Yes. There's nothing wrong with her here.
The most important thing caregivers should know is, especially if you're dealing with Alzheimer's, is Alzheimer's patients act out. If they act out, it's nothing personal. It's neither the patient's fault nor the caregiver's. Try not to take things personally. This is something that you're going to want to learn to tell your caregiver. Because more than likely, once the person is to this stage, they're not going to let you stay with them by themselves. Because they're just not comfortable with what might happen to you.
Okay.
Now, you may run across somebody that maybe the behaviors aren't sufficient, that they're worried about that. And maybe that person's behaviors are not going to be really aggressive and out there. It's always just best to see how the caregiver handles things and then follow suit. Because, I mean, they're the ones that take care of them. While there's no cure for Alzheimer's, caregivers can learn, and this goes for you guys too, calming approaches that can help Alzheimer's or dementia sufferers feel safe and secure when they feel overwhelmed and possibly alleviate progression of difficult behaviors in the moment. For each person, the approach is going to be different, and that's from the Alzheimer's Association themselves. One of the things that they will tell you is that just because there are two people sitting at the same table and they both have Alzheimer's, neither one of them is going to be like the other one. It's going to be totally different. Now, this is just a list of things that you may see that's in this study. I just added it so that you guys could take a look at it when you take your notebook home. There's some addresses for how to address a behavior problem. That's only if a caregiver asks you. You never offer, unless they go, I just don't know what to do. Don't offer, suggest that they visit with their doctor.
Yeah.
Do you not have that page?
Well, I'm just wondering, I'm already into section 3, according to what you had here. Been in section 3 ever since you started.
Well, I may have put the thing in the wrong place.
Dealing with difficult situations in section 3.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. And we were in 2, but now we're going on into 3.
3, it starts with some basics about disabilities, doesn't it?
Yes. Did you put the thing in the?
See right there, dealing with difficult. That's not section 3?
No. Section 3 starts
It's
with
like 2 or 3
some
more
basics
pages.
about disabilities.
Keep going. Keep going.
No wonder you were looking at the what?
I've been wondering why are you going on all this time? Caregiver connection?
And then right after that, it says some basics about disabilities, the very next page. Each one of these is gonna start with this.
Okay.
It's all her fault, I didn't do it.
Well, I was wondering why we was on with the next, why we just keep going
You're
on?
supposed to say, what are you doing?
Well, I was going on with you, but.
Okay, well, anyway, sorry
back in
about
my
that.
mind, I'm saying, why are we still going on?
I'd have been doing, do you know what time it is? Well, I think we're supposed to leave or something. We're done with this section. Anyway, like I said, you're gonna always say to them, you need to visit with your doctor. Don't try to.
That's not
Don't
us.
try to, right, that's not our job, to offer, ideas on how to take care of things.
Right.
Even if they say to you, what do you think? You say, I really don't know, I'm not very versed on this. I
I'm
would
not
say,
qualified to answer that.
yeah. Except that you don't want it to get too much, like, the best thing is just say, I really don't know. I would say probably talk to your doctor. And we're not gonna do any role playing because I think we've already played this out just about as much as we can. I was gonna give y'all another 10-minute break, but I wanna tell you what's in your notebook right quick instead. We're done with the actual class, and I'm gonna give y'all some things also that might make, it easier to offer your caregivers some things. This is called the STAP program. And what this is a specialized telecommunications assistance program. If they cannot hear over a regular phone, you can recommend them to call. This is some question and answer things. And you can get information about that. And you can give them these, if you give these out, just let me know and I'll bring you some more. But only had enough to bring everybody
Okay.
one. You're also gonna notice that I have some of these for you guys. This is, the Disability in Action has a Transportation Works program, and it comes here to Eastland Cisco Ranger.
Okay.
And if you know someone that doesn't drive anymore, or they can't drive anymore, or they don't have a vehicle because they can't afford a vehicle, and they don't have Medicaid, and have no way to get back and forth to Abilene, like if they have doctor's appointments and what have you, this can help. Actually, I'm just gonna give you this stack and you can share.
Okay.
I think there's enough for everybody to have 5.
And I don't know of anybody right now, so.
Right. But if you got, when you guys begin doing this, you're gonna find out that you know people a whole lot more than you thought you did.
Okay.
What was the next thing I'm going to talk to you about? Before we talk about this, I put something in the front of your binder that can be either for you or for someone you think that may need it. And it's from the Texas Legal Services Center. And it's something called a TODD, T-O-D-D. Excuse me, that is the Transfer on Death Deed. And it works for real property only. And what the government deems as real property is property like, that doesn't mean your stamp collection. That means your physical property like your land, your mineral rights, your water rights, your house, things like that.
And buildings.
Yes.
Vehicles, whatever.
Right. And if you don't know for sure whether or not you understand what it is that they're describing, there are several phone numbers on the side that is in English, or If you look on the other side, you'll see that it's in Spanish if you have a Spanish speaking.
No hardly.
No, but you might have someone that they do,
Yes, sir.
and they have a need for something like this. This, now I will tell you, this transfer on death deed is extremely easy to make it out. If you look, I didn't staple this together, I just paper clipped it, because you may want to make copies of it. There's general instructions on here, but the actual transfer on death deed is extremely easy to fill out. And you need one for each piece of property, not for the property and the house, if the house is sitting on the property. All that's considered one piece. But let's say that you're a farmer and you have your house and fields that the house sits on, and then you have across town, you have somebody that's leasing a piece of property from you that you own, and then maybe over in Coleman County, you've got another piece of property. For each separate individual piece of property, you're gonna need a separate TOD for it.
Why do we need this?
Okay, I'm gonna tell you. This will help circumvent Medicaid from coming in and taking the home away from the caregiver that maybe is
Mama
living
did-
there with.
Mama did that with her money, her investments, so that when she passed, it immediately went to us 5 kids. It was
Okay,
all-
but that's different than this.
That's different than this?
Yes,
Okay.
because this is not, you cannot do
This
this
is
with
just for
money.
property.
This
Okay.
is just for real
Okay,
property.
This is called something
And
different.
it goes, it has more weight than a will,
Okay.
and it does not come into effect until you pass.
Yeah, okay.
And then once you pass, then immediately, it goes straight to the person that is the beneficiary,
Mhm.
and you don't have to go through probate, and you don't
Right.
have to worry that Medicaid can come in and take the house to recoup monies that they use to take care of your loved one.
I know someone I need to show that
I know more than someone's that you need to show that to. You have several family members that need to know about that.
to.
Can you transfer like, I have 2 children.
Mhm.
I mean, you can give it to the 2 of them?
About
No.
sick as when mom?
No,
Not on that?
not on the TOD.
Oh.
It can only be given to one beneficiary. However, as many pieces of property as you have, you can give it out, but there can only be one beneficiary on the property. However, if you set up your will that says that whoever is the beneficiary of that it either has to be sold and separated, the financing, you can set your will up to tell the person that is the TOD beneficiary what they have to do with it.
But this says that this trumps the will.
Yes, it
So, I
does.
mean, they don't
But
have to do
it
it.
instructions.
It will go directly to that person.
Yes.
So they don't have to do it.
But the will can,
The will is intended for instructions.
Yes.
And this is assuming that your children or your beneficiaries are compliant to each other.
Right.
If you have
Okay.
children that fight,
this is not a
you
good
just
thing.
give one piece over here and one piece over there, and never the two shall meet. But the reason that this is so important is for spouses or for children that are taking care of their parents. And the reason that I'm so adamant about this is because Medicare tried to come in and take Mother's house, and I'm half owner of that house. And we had to get a lawyer, and it cost me $650 in court costs to keep this from happening. And if we had had this, it wouldn't have been a thing they could have said, because immediately upon Mother's death, it would have gone straight to, there would have been one for Brenda in Eastland, one for me here, or one for me in Abilene, and none of the stuff that has happened since then with the lawyers and all that sort of stuff would have had to happen. Because we would not have had to deal with people
Well,
saying,
it
we're
would
gonna
have
take
been,
away.
it would have been cut and dry,
Yeah,
yeah.
and there wouldn't have been anything that
But you
anybody
husband and
could.
wife, do you need one?
I'm sorry?
With husband and wife, do you need one?
Yes, and you need to make each other the beneficiary.
In other words, you give it to the wife,
Yes,
or give it to the husband.
yes. Now, if something happens to you both, then a will be
Takes care of it.
what takes care of it because you're both gone. So the beneficiary of the Todd, it becomes null and void.
Of course, the will already puts everything to my wife. If something happens to me.
Yes, but it doesn't keep where if something happens to you and you have, let's say that there's a couple that their wills are set up where the other one is the beneficiary
Yeah.
in the event of their death. But let's say that they're in a car accident. And this is what they gave us, the example that they gave us. Let's say that you're in a car accident and you're both injured, but one of you is injured more than the other. And it requires a lot of your insurance. It requires so much of your insurance that it eventually taps out your insurance. And Medicaid comes into play to get the assistance that you need for meds or hospitalizations or whatever it is. And then that person that was really seriously injured eventually dies. But now the state thinks that you owe them money because they took care of that loved one for you. So now that that person is gone, they're going to come and try to take whatever properties you may have that will equal the amount of money that they feel like that they have put in, that they can prove. Because they can't do it unless they can prove that they have monies. But they take really good records. And so they can always prove it.
That's if you get Medicaid.
Yeah, that's if
If
you're
you
in a
receive-
situation.
Sometimes
You receive
Medicare will do
Medicaid.
the same thing. If you're already a senior, sometimes Medicare will do the same thing. If you don't want to use the Todd, then don't use the Todd. You know, that's what I tell people. It's not mandatory that you use it. But if you feel like, if you already see yourself in a situation and your spouse is on Medicaid because they're not old enough for Medicare yet, and they're in a situation where we actually know a caregiver that is taking care of a loved one that was in a situation similar to this, and they're on Medicaid now because their insurance is tapped out. They don't have any insurance left. And they've sold just about everything that they have and gotten to the place where if something was to happen to that person that's being cared for, the government would try to come and recoup what they have been out. And because it's been so many years, it's going to be an exorbitant amount. And I am trying to convince this caregiver that they need the Todd. While this person is still able to sign, because the person that is the owner of the piece of property has to be able to be in their right mind so that they can sign.
Somebody can't do it for them.
Yeah. If they're not cognizant of what they're doing, then it's not a legal document.
Okay.
So it has to be while you still can. But anyway, those are just the pieces of paper that I placed in your folders. When you get home tonight, or whenever you get ready, you will see that I put in your folder this finding out about myself. I would like you to just read through it. Take some time to think about it before you make the decision to sit down and write it. If you think that
We're
you
gonna give it
can,
back to you.
this is all about you.
This
This
is
is
for,
homework.
this is just for us?
Mhm.
Okay, all right.
It's just for you to, but I'd like you to keep it in your notebook, because we are going to discuss it.
Okay.
But
At
we
some
don't have
point.
to turn it in.
No, No,
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to know.
no, it's not for a grade or anything. This is for you. Because it will, I don't know, maybe other people are much more well-adjusted than I am. But I kind of went, are you kidding me? I hadn't really even thought about some of the answers that I found were necessary for me to put down. Now, nobody's ever going to see that except me. But it really was an eye-opener. And I learned some things about myself. That's why it's called Finding Out About Myself. And it's, and I'm not gonna ask you to read your answers. I will, however, ask you about your giftings and your callings.
Okay.
So, there we are.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much for coming, for being here. I really appreciate
Sounds
this.
like we've had a herd of elephants going around.
Quiet down now.
Well, that's because they're rarely done.
This is their last night.
Oh, it's Thursday.
Yeah.
They go somewhere.
Yeah, they're supposed to be over here.